build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. I'm your host Matty. I'm joined tonight by Colin and John. John, how you doing?
Doing okay. How are you?
Also doing all right. I've had better weekends football-wise, made slightly less painful by Dundee United getting a tanking, which was takes the heat off us a wee bit, doesn't it, when somebody else gets an absolute pasting. Colin, how are you doing?
All right, mate. Had a good day, so aye. All right, football. Had a good weekend, apart from that couple of hours watching the football and then talking on Twitter Spaces last night.
Aye.
Although that was quite therapeutic, actually. I think that helped my day today.
I thought the Twitter space was like, if I say so myself, because it's yours a machine to really blow their own trumpet this, but I thought it was fucking brilliant, much needed, eh? Because I when the game finished, I was raging, and see being able to just kind of go on and have other folk equally angry, justifying that rage, and you get it all off your chest. It is good. I've actually.
Was it like an electronic rage room where you just all screaming into the void?
Yeah.
Aye, pretty much.
I'd be more angrier than another, like every call.
But it was really good. It actually some really good, well thought out points generally. On it.
It's amazing because I thought when we started that there's going to be a lot of dafties come on, but there's not been.
Nah.
So, good.
And actually,
does that mean we've got room for dafties, or we'd like them to stay away wherever they are just now?
We say dafties are right. Dickheads are banned. Like I think we said that on one of them. Is like you can speak, but if your point's going to make you sound like a dickhead, then come on. But
so
if you've
help us to help you.
if you're listening and you've not been on one of the Twitter spaces, so we're on Twitter. We're at Longbangers, which I think is how most folk generally find us, either through that or through the forums. So at Longbangers, if you watch our Twitter feed, we do them on a Tuesday, where we'll talk about the Monday night episode, Sunday night one if you're a subscriber. So the one we're recording just now, we'll be talking about on Tuesday. So if you listen to this and you think, oh, I agree with what they said, or I disagree with what they said, or I want to talk about it to them, jump on our Twitter space and you can talk directly to us, and we'll welcome your views. And then we do the post-match one on a Saturday, so right after the game. So it was about 6 o'clock we started it, Colin?
Yeah, 6.
Aye, 6 o'clock. It's like an old school kind of football phone-in. What's your point caller type
Speaking of, there was a lot of boys in one of the supporters buses listening in yesterday, but they didn't know what phone in because it was too noisy. So they were on towards the tail end because they were just getting off the bus and that. But there was a few of them actually listening in on the bus. So it's like proper old school stuff.
Aye, I think it's a great idea. So again, know what we do is a great idea, but the Twitter space is a great idea. So get involved. The more people get involved, the better it is. And I will be putting yesterday's one out as a podcast. If you've missed it, you can listen to it, and if you have listened to it already, just delete the download when it comes. It doesn't matter. Anyway, right. Let's get stuck into this episode. So Mirren 1, Hibs 0. A fucking shit show of a game. John, I know you were away enjoying a stag weekend, and so you've not seen so much of the game, but you managed to catch the highlights.
Aye, I think it was maybe
30 seconds aside.
I always say it was about 3-4 minutes on the Sky Sports on Twitter preview. I've not seen like sports scene or that, but obviously saw the grainy Zapruder film like footage yesterday on Twitter of the goal. Got to see it a bit tidied up the day on Sky Sports. I don't think. Do you know? I'm looking at the stats. They're over to my left hand side here, and for what I remember of the highlights, I think there was maybe 2 St Mirren chances, and that was about it. I don't remember really anything for Hibs.
I think St Mirren got a few right at the end there, where they could have probably put us away by.
So St Mirren scored. St Mirren had a chance. St Mirren hit the post, and I think that was the scale of the highlights.
Aye, because you know why though? They kept breaking through the middle of the defence, but then they were blasting over the bar. If they had decent strikers, they could have taken 3, 4, 5 off us yesterday. I think it was just purely because their finishing was atrocious. It wasn't even on target, so probably didn't register for a highlight because it wasn't making Marshall work. But they should have scored more. They should have.
What did you think of the game, Colin? Because you watched it all.
Shite, absolute shit. But it was deja vu or Groundhog Day and all that. It was all that because it was going to another ground where we think, oh, we'll definitely get a win. We're just somebody to hide in, and we've got a good record there or whatever. And then lose an early goal and never look like scoring.
Which do you think the Hibs players think it would have been? Deja vu or Groundhog Day?
I think there'd be a split. Didn't
That's a
it?
good
Like
question.
the younger ones, probably Groundhog Day. And then the older ones, a bit more culture.
And the
to that.
foreigners.
And the
Aye,
foreigners,
foreigners.
aye. We go for deja vu.
Who do you think in the Hibs squad wakes up to that like old alarm clock that flips over and it's Sonny and Cher playing?
Oh. You say Lewis, I would Jake Doyle-Hayes.
I think so.
David
Aye.
Marshall, if you're talking, so you said the older ones would have a bit more culture. You think David Marshall's a bit cultured, a bit deja vu?
Oh, I definitely. He's been around Dave Marshall, so I think he would definitely go down the deja vu. But I think Jake Doyle-Hayes is like a no frills, isn't he? Like he looks like just somebody who.
But he'll
It's
still
no
have a
flash,
phone.
is he? So
Nah, but it'll still be his mobile phone as his alarm. He's not going to have an alarm clock. IMO.
IMO. Aye, right. Anyway, it was a shite game. It was Groundhog Day, not literally, and deja vu and all the rest of it, because we appeared to have just decided to start playing fucking last season's team again for some reason, as if that's going to help us out.
Although, aye, during the game, maybe not at the start, but during the game, it turned into that, didn't it, with the subs?
So starting. In fact, do you know what? So it'll probably come up in the talking points. We'll go to voice of the people, and then we'll cover the game as we go through it, as we go through the points.
All right. Well, I start with performance. I think we will.
Aye.
Murray, A. Smith, Jeff Ashton, Guinness 22, TG Willis, Parmaham 2. If Johan scores, it's a different second half. I think we're okay up top once the goals start coming and confidence builds. Centre midfield and centre back are a real worry. Newell and Doyle-Hayes are fine as ball carriers, but only one has to play. And we need that baller to make things happen. But who do we go for? Those fans that booed Doidge as he was subbed, please give your heads a wobble. And if that doesn't work, go support someone else. It's counterproductive, only helps the opposition. We're all suffering, and that does nothing positive. Next one, for Guinness. Didn't see the game, so can't comment. Would you like me to say what he says when he commented on the game?
Yes.
Heard Joe Newell was not at his best. He played well versus Rangers last week. This hot and cold is annoying. Ian Drop might give him a kick, give him the kick he needs, but can we drop him with the squad we have? Some players play well when the game's live on TV as they're in the shop window, or only play well, when the game's on TV. Recruitment's a mess. Striker can't score. Midfield's hopeless. Defence is missing. Too many players not interested or up to the job. It's all fairly positive.
So, I think so John, I wonder if you, one of the early points there, I was trying to take some notes as we were going, about, I think we'll be all right up top once the goals start coming.
Aye, that was, funnily enough, as I was frantically scribbling notes as Colin went through it there, that was one of the things that I picked up on. When we started scoring goals, I think we'll be all right, because I think we've been in that situation for far too long. So looking at yesterday's stats, 14 shots, 1 on target, like, I've not looked at the previous games this season. I've not looked at the previous games. So not scored in the first half. We're creating chances, but not testing the keeper, really. And obviously, like, there's been a couple of goals here and there. I think we've scored 4 goals in 5 games. It's just a bit bleh. Like, when are the goals coming from? Sorry, where are the goals coming from? Where are they going to come? It doesn't quite feel like it's happening.
Johan missed us.
Sorry, go on.
Johan missed a sitter at the start of the second half, and the point somebody said if that goes in, it's a different game, and they're probably right, because St Mirren would have then had to have opened up a wee bit rather than the kind of counter attacking it there, because St Mirren pretty much managed to just let us be shite and then win the game.
But that is the game plan, because it's go and score a goal, and they're fucked. Like, if we were to score first, that would then change a team's game plan. But we just totally play into these teams' hands. Livingston as well. This season alone.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about, like, missing the sitter. And I don't know if it's worrying, but the first thing that immediately came to mind there when you were talking about previous games and sitters was Bojan against Livingston and then Johan against St Mirren yesterday. How often, for how long do you excuse that? when players are missing sitters.
But there's a thing about kind of saying that it's better to be there to miss them. You know, that's like you don't worry about a striker who misses the odd chance like that if they're there and missing them. But we didn't create loads of chances on Saturday. I mean, Yuan played quite wide. He ended up getting taken off because he was going to get sent off, and he had that chance. But that was the only chance he really had. Was that one? Boyle wasn't in the game at all. They just kind of doubled and trebled up on Boyle. And
wee bit of worry to me that we're almost back to Mark Boyle at the game and Hibs are not scoring. Like already, he's just back, and we're already back to that situation.
When we were coming back down the road for the Stag do the day, one of the points that my mate McBee made was that, like Martin Boyle, it's almost like he's been out for 6 months injured, and now that he's back, we're exactly where we were before he left. Just mark him out the game, and Hibs are toothless. There's not there's no chances being created. There's no one else. There's no other Martin Boyle in the squad to kind of stretch it a bit.
And Doidge, I mean, what do you say about Christian Doidge now? I mean, he's obviously the knives are out for him in the support, but it's harder and harder to defend,
them.
Because, and I'm sure he's like, nobody goes out and means to be shite, and he doesn't pick himself, right? So I always think Lee Johnson's got to take some accountability for this, for picking him, and we'll come on to recruitment in a wee bit, because that was one of your topics, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How have we found ourselves in a position where Christian Doidge is our first choice number 9 when he's no kicked the ball for us for what is it, about a year?
Yeah.
A hat-trick against Clyde aside.
And it's one injury we've got. Like, it's not like we're saying, we've got a mass of injuries in that position. Yeah. There's one guy out, and he's been out for
since January.
It can't be a ball here of a year, right? 8 months. So, like, it's no. He got injured after the window, didn't he, January, though? It
was just as the window closed,
so it's one window then we've been through and we've not replaced that. It's not like we've missed 2 windows here. But still, one injury, and that's who we've got up front. And the thing is, he scored a rake of goals, but he used to, even before his injury, he was merely a nuisance as well. You know, he was always hitting off him, or he was winning headers or whatever. I spoke to a guy, there's a guy, Charlie, on the call last night. He was at the game. He says, I forgot he was on. The pitch. Till he heard somebody saying how shite was Doidge, like on the hang last night. He thought, fuck, he was playing. You know, that's how bad it was. It was like, it wasn't even noticeable to anybody. Well, to him.
I saw a player rating thing, you know, where the online. I think he got 2.6 out of 10. Which really? Is what out of 15 can 3 of it.
Is that on the BBC? Like, because
I kind of just saw somebody just kind of clipped that wee bit. 2.6, and actually 2.6 is probably fucking generous, because I think you could have taken Doidge off yesterday, and there would have been no discernible difference to the team.
So can I ask, because I never saw his involvement, and I remember having a similar conversation about Boyle last season, where I think I asked the question, was it because Boyle was playing poorly, or was it because Hibs collectively were poor and weren't able to get the ball to Boyle? So did Doidge see much of the ball yesterday? Was there many chances created? Was there many balls into the box?
I think he maybe had one header, I think, that he put wide. I think it was him that headed it sort of in the second half, I think, flashed across the goal. It never really looked like going in. So he didn't get any service, but at the same time he wasn't creating space. He wasn't like calling to being a nuisance. Or
I find myself on the side of, like, it's really, really shit that. So like Paul Hanlon, for example, I think Paul Hanlon's still recovering from injury at the moment. Like, he's no match fit or whatever, and he's just been chucked in there because we find ourselves with an injury to one player, same as up front, and there's no backup, which has been the case for a number of years now. Like, we just never ever strengthened in those areas. So the option that I think that Lee Johnson has up front is you drop Doidge and you play Bojang, and he'll probably get crucified for that, or at least Hibs would probably get crucified for that, because they've signed a player that's like seen as a development player unless they're ready for the squad.
It's a good point, John. I think I or someone else made it on Quick Bang, or whatever we're calling it, last night, and that when you seen that team before the game, there was maybe only 1 or 2 positions that you went, who you changing. One would have been Doidge, right? And I think the other was possibly the midfield.
Kenna.
Aye, yeah.
We've seen Kenna come into
Somebody
midfield.
get Kenna in for any of the three sort of thing. And that was and somebody I think suggested Henderson maybe as well, but I'm not sure on that. But definitely those two would have been the contentious ones before the game, and that's what we would have picked, like, or people would have picked on the Friday. I can't remember what folks said in the preview on Friday night. What teams are going to play? It was pretty much the team that got picked, give or take. Like, it's not like it's drastically changed because there's nothing else.
Well, there is. So you've got Tavares, who brought in much heralded signing, not been seen since Livingston. So you could play him wide, put Ewan through the middle, or Boyle through the middle and Ewan on the side. You could play Tavares, you could play Ewan, you could play Bojang, you've got Melkerson there. I mean, it's not like there are any options that could have come in, so without it necessarily being Bojang that's a direct replacement.
There's no confidence in them then, because Bojang's missed the sitter, Tavares isn't impressed, Melkerson's TBC as well, isn't he? Like, it's just like,
but, I mean,
he's had one good game sort of thing the whole time he's been here.
Yeah, and I think Melkerson's coming back for an injury, and they did say sort of through the week when Jamie McAllister was interviewed that it might be a game too soon for him, so maybe he wasn't quite fit enough to start, and he maybe wouldn't have come on for Ewan if Ewan wasn't so intent on apparently trying to get sent off.
No. I wonder if Henderson could play on like the left or front three. So that'd give him a bit of freedom. That he maybe doesn't, so he's not having to track back as much as when he's in midfield, or need to be as physical as he does when he's in midfield and stuff like that.
Not a bad shout.
Yeah, he could. I just don't know if he's fast enough or like effective enough in that position.
No, you won't, because we've not seen him then.
Well, that's true. You talk about the midfield as well. That was the other one that kind of got brought up there. Newell, Jake Doyle-Hayes and Campbell, and then they played one or the other in Newell and Jake Doyle-Hayes. It's a huge problem for us. That I think the midfield. I can't get your thoughts on it first, right? But the way I see it is there's a growing body of evidence to say if you play Campbell, Jake Doyle-Hayes, Newell, you're not going to win a football match.
Aye. Well, I think the stats would back that up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got to cover that in the next bit, like about the record over the last, the equivalent of a season, but not in terms of football season, but like over the last 12 months and all that, what our stats are, and how many, like we've won 4 games in a year, and 36 games or something, which is a league season. That tells you, yes, it won't work. It'd be interesting at the 4 games if they all played in them, like or not, because it doesn't work. It doesn't. That's what. Actually, I'll just move on to team selection. One of the points, because we've kind of started overlapping it. Mm-hmm. Dave Graham says 4-2-3-1 doesn't work for shit. Doyle-Hayes and Newell, one has to be dropped. Never the twain should meet. Porto just transfer list him if he's not signing a new deal. Then there's a couple of other ones about who should come in. Do you want me just to rattle through?
Aye.
There's only 3 of them. Jeff Ashton, Charlie Mulgrew thinks you made that up, and Richard. Instead of purchasing more unknowns, can we just start playing some of the players from the successful youth team of last season? O'Connor and the central defence partnership would be a start. At least then youth players would be getting experience. Why is Dylan Tate not in the team, given the fact he was impressive when he did play versus Norwich, and the centre midfield's not working? And this one's Jeff. Somebody said to repeat the same thing over and over again, expect a different result is insanity. Well, he said he means where, but he wrote where. They're referring to our team selection in midfield in particular. So we've said that before about the repeating the same thing over and over, being sign madness and all that. The Dylan Tate thing and the O'Connor and I don't even know who the centre defence is in the youth team for last year. Don't know. O'Connor, I've seen O'Connor, I've seen Tate, and it's one game, but they were playing for a B team in a competitive match, and they didn't look. They didn't. They looked okay.
Yeah. They
didn't dominate a game against a Highland League team like an SPFL, what we called Premiership.
Premiership. Yeah.
I would expect if Doyle-Hayes or Newell dropped to play against Brecon in a competitive match, they would dominate it, and they never. They didn't even get close to that in a game we lost.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're not ready. Maybe the club's right. Like, sure, if they were ready, they would be getting pushed forward. We're struggling here.
Aye, but it's an issue, isn't it? Like a really significant issue because that midfield, in my opinion, like IMO again called, uh,
Yep.
is never going to play the style of football that Lee Johnson wants to play. I think what level of coaching you would need to do there to fundamentally change how they play football. And then John, what does it say for Noah Kenna that he doesn't even like last two games? He's not even made the pitch.
Was he on the bench though? He was on the bench
He was on
yesterday.
the bench yesterday. Yeah.
Times.
I honestly don't know. That point about the definition of insanity is a pretty good one, and I don't think it just applies to Lee Johnson. It applies to Hibs in general. Because I was looking at the lineup yesterday, and there was only 3 players different from last season.
Mhm.
Like just continuing the same stuff. Like I think we talked about it a few games ago. It's maybe Falkirk or Morton, and I think I made the point about Lee Johnson talked about like the history of the club and some of the stuff, and I said that he needed to look a little bit more at recent history. And I wonder, like as much as there's been a couple of reasonable interviews in the press, and there was a funny clip where I think there was a St Mirren fan, or maybe it was even a Hibs fan, shouted to him that his team was brutal, and he went, I agree with you." I wouldn't mind an explanation as to why, because like everyone amongst the Hibs supporters going, that midfield does not work, and yet like it didn't work for Jack Ross, didn't work for Sean Maloney, wasn't working for David Gray, and then Lee Johnson comes along and say that maybe I think I can get something better out of it.
Correct. Did he not play it in, was it Falkirk away in the League Cup? Played
Yeah,
that
he
midfield
did.
because there was a bit of noise about it at the time, and it
Yeah.
obviously didn't work that fucking night either.
So what, like you say that, Matty, there's that growing body evidence, and it's frustrating because we come on here and we talk about it, and it's like we talk about the things that we think need to change, but we can't affect that change.
Mhm.
The boy that's in the position, or the people that are in the position to make that change, are kind of, it's like they're missing. Like what is the plan? What's the vision for the future? Because the things that we've been told, the stuff that all the niceties that we hear in the press, we are now seeing evidence of. Like all the things that were frustrating us last season, all the things that led us to empty 3 managers within the space of a year, still happening. What's happening? What's going on at the club?
How much, Colin, do you think that Lee Johnson has to carry the can for?
Well, he is the manager, so he is responsible. Whether he's accountable for the whole mess, like he's got to take his part of the blame. Like he gets the final say on transfers. He picks the team. He, as I said, I think it's John that said it before, but I repeated last night, is that can they not just coach the players that are already there and make them better rather than relying on bringing in 11 new signings? And we've not seen much evidence of that. So I think he'll carry the can for it. Whether he should carry the can, I don't know yet. Like I think we shouldn't even be considering sacking him. Like he shouldn't even be talking about that yet. No,
that accountability.
I wonder if the club are.
That accountability, I think, is really interesting because you said there about the manager having the final say on transfers, but we've got one manager now, reeled off the 3 previous. Maybe David Gray wouldn't be responsible for ever bringing anyone in or having the final say, given that he was a caretaker manager. But we're now on 4 managers within the space of a season, and longer still, if you count the season before, we were looking for centre halves and strikers, and that's the accountability part because there's no other options. Like who's accountable for those missing players? So you had you prepared that presentation for the club in terms of the successful transfer window, and we played 8 of the same players that were playing last season.
Yeah,
and nothing's really changing.
Maybe need to update that after this window shuts and just send on. And here's the list, because I just every time we sacked a manager says that was his last team. And we just do it again here and just say at the end of the window,
copy and paste, new file name.
3 managers with 2 transfer windows in between, and we've got the same fucking team. Better goalie. Everybody else is still the same.
That's your presentation this year. It's David Marshall. Just his name on a scrap bit of paper and send that in.
What's mad about it is Scott Miller on Twitter sort of made the point on Twitter. We talked about it last night as well. But there's a point in the second half where there was, apart from Marshall, there was no new signings on the pitch. Nobody that wasn't there last season.
Right, the end of the game.
Aye, so I think we didn't finish that way because Miller came on, and he was a summer
We had
signing.
Chibrai on at the start as well.
Aye, so we didn't start.
There was a point in the match where.
Aye, so Chibrai went off and Stevenson came on, and Henderson came on, I think, at the same time. And you're looking at a team, right? But what's fucking worrying about it is you've got Paul Hanlon, right? And we know the circumstances around Hanlon starting, and that Rocky is picked up an injury. So Rocky's out for 2 months. He probably would have played rather than Paul Hanlon. You've got Porteous, who's playing with his head up his arse at the minute. He's miles off it. Stevenson comes on, and we've got McGregor on the bench. McGregor retired effectively last season. Do you remember that Kenny did captain the last game of the season, the lap of honour? There was a big fanfare about how he wasn't quite hanging up his boots, but he really is a development player to go and develop his coaching career. Yeah. And we're relying on him on the bench.
The thing about McGregor last season was that he was kind of like the last of last resorts. And we had a wee bit of, or at least I tried to have a wee bit of giggle about it, saying like someone needs to throw in the towel on his behalf because he's just never going to stop. This season, because of that continued lack of activity in defence. So, Colin, I think you mentioned, it was you were referencing Dave Graham about Porteous, I think, and signing the new deal or getting rid. So even if Porteous signs the new deal, we're still no better off in terms of our defenders. And McGregor looks like a more viable option at, I think, 37 years old. And no looking particularly fresh when we saw him last year. Like, how have Hibs found themselves in that situation? How has the club still failed to address the need for a new defender? So whether it's a young guy that plays regularly, so there's McClellan, for example, but we're not seeing him playing. And there was a suggestion recently that he was going to go out on loan.
Yeah. Which
means that McGregor's like the backup. Still not addressing it. And there's still just no activity, no suggestion that anything's going to change.
We did sign so we signed Rocky. So it's not like we've no signed a centre half. We did sign one, and obviously then he's been injured, but we needed more than one.
Yep.
And that was what the problem is. It's not just that you've got, I better get one just in case something happens to Hanlon or Porteous, because there's always the risk that Porteous is going to get sold. Mm-hmm. Hanlon's coming off the back of an injury. Actually, Hanlon's been in and out the team injuries over the last couple of seasons, so you can't hang your hat on him being available.
Sent off on Saturday. McGregor's playing the week after. Mm. That's where we are. That's the position we're in at the moment.
It's criminal.
Absolutely.
and then I think, and again we'll come on to this when we do extra time, which is probably going to be our topic tonight. We could have said before about us being one game away from or one defeat away from a crisis and folk losing their shit. But actually, it's totally understandable why folk lose their shit, get beat on Saturday when you see the team that's played and you go, how can we have spent the money that we've spent this summer
and improved that
and signed, what was it, like somebody said about 11 players, 12 players that we brought in? Where the fuck are they? It's mental.
I do agree with coming to say that now, but about Boo and Doidge isn't the way to go. Like, you boo the team at the end, fine. You don't boo an individual like that. I don't think that's to achieve anything. But
that was Jeff. Anyway, I think Jeff Ashton, and I totally agree. I think that's, like we said earlier, it's no Doidge's fault. It's not like he's trying to play shite. Yeah. What's the next topic?
It's recruitment and the manager. So we've kind of preempted it again. So Jeff again, Lucy Van Pelt, Brunswick Bill, Liam H, Keyser, Soze, Andrew Brown, Parmaham 2. So they're asking what our thoughts are on Lee Johnson's post-match comments. To me, this is Jeff, it was a back me or sack me moment. At this time, my sympathies are with him, but only just. We don't have the balance right. We're development and oven ready signings. I'd like the fans to get right behind Lee. He's being honest with us. The team sheet from yesterday shows the lack of recruitment of first team ready players. McGregor was only backup for centre back, just covered that. Great Hibs man, but I thought he was working with the development squad, playing last season's midfield. Ewan's got good pace, but poor touch and control. If Ian Gordon's role, as Ron says, just admin, who at the club is actually doing the recruitment and should be wearing the flag for the signings that aren't good enough? That was touching on the accountability that I was mentioning. Verdict surely now in on the signings. Baron Boyle, Marshall, and Yuan in flashes. The rest are clearly not good enough. If they were, the manager would play them. Tavares, clearly a horrible mistake. Miller overhyped. Chabraya, jury still out. Bojang not ready. Kenna dropped. Have we progressed on the football side at all since last season? And the last one, where has it gone wrong? We've more money and resources than most teams, but we're arguably the worst performing team in the league. Obviously sent before lunchtime the day.
I actually we're at a disadvantage. I made the point on the Hibs net. We're at a disadvantage for every other team in the league because we didn't get to play us. Right. Is it too early to write players off? The new signings? That's probably my first question to you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Although I have done it.
Aye.
But it should be too early, but I've already looked at a couple and went, no. But
no, for you.
I need to open my mind up again because it is only 3-4 games in, 5 games in.
So if we start for the defence and work away forwards, we can kind of run through who we brought in and whether or not we think they're going to make an impact. So Marshall, I think we're all agreed.
Big tick in that box.
Scotland's number one.
Right back, Lewis Miller came in.
Very raw.
Enough, I'm afraid.
So we played Cadden at right back. I don't think we're getting the best out of Cadden. Now Cadden's not really done much this season. I think that's fair to say. So we've got an ineffective Cadden, but Miller's not deemed good enough to take his place yet. So He's either no good enough or no ready, and he might develop. Centre halves with Rocky. Thoughts on Rocky?
Sorry, can we just go back one step about Miller?
Aye.
And I don't think I'd be contradicting or being unkind about anything I've said before, but I think he has all the right attributes. But I actually think that despite him being in the first team, he could probably do a bit of time in the development squad, like just to sort of finesse his game a bit, because there's a lot of slack touches.
Yeah,
like a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy. Just needs to refine it a little bit.
How old is he though?
I think did he come in for under 23 side? Under 23 side.
2 seconds. I'll check. So he was playing first team in Australia.
Sorry, I think he plays for the Australian under 23s, or had been capped at that level.
Lewis Miller. Let's have a look at what age he is. He's 22. So he's still relatively young, but no a youngster.
You would think he'd be a development player, right? Signing somebody at 22, though, eh?
Just in terms of his attributes, if you like, based on what we've seen of him playing so far, I think that he could probably do a bit of time, maybe out on loan, developing, because he's not going to develop in the first team with performances like that, and it's going to be to Hibs' detriment.
Yeah,
I could give the ball away every time he got it on Saturday. But just like,
and he pissed off McAllister because he wasn't ready to come on when they wanted to come on. Which I know folk disagree with, but I mean, surely you're sitting with your fucking boots on, ready to go.
So Miller's jury's out. I think they're kind of writing him off yet, but he's obviously not good enough to be nailing a first team place. Rocky.
He's been better this season than he was last, I think. He's been alright.
So, I think I made the point in our WhatsApp group that it wasn't that long ago that folk would have been happy if he was missing for a couple of months, but look at how badly he was missed yesterday, and how much a shock that was, and you're thinking, Christ, like an unfit Hanlon's going to play.
Now, do we include McClelland? Because McClelland was definitely brought in for the development team. That was the sort of the publicity around it at the time. So, is it unfair to include him in this first team conversation at this stage?
I think it is.
In which case, we're in.
He's not been near it, has he?
Nah, again, we've not really seen him. There's been limited time for him.
Chabraya, left back.
He didn't have a good game yesterday, but he's been promising to me. I think he's one worth sticking with. And I think he wasn't great yesterday, and there was somebody there, and the jury's still out. It was what the comment was. I don't know. I thought my jury, in my mind, had already made its mind up that he was a good signing, but he had a bad game yesterday. But then I guess last week he got through on the adrenaline after he's not gone home and all that.
Yep.
He'll still be grieving in that. You need to give him a wee chance, eh?
And
he showed enough before all that. We're comparing him to David Murphy. Like, he didn't go for comparing to David Murphy to compare to fucking Joe Tortolano or something. You know what I mean? It's like, actual. So I think he's all right. I think he's got to be a good signing.
So then into midfield we brought in Kenna, who we spoke about. John, thoughts on Kenna?
I've not been that keen on him so far, and it might just be because of the games that we've played him in, where I think against St Johnstone in particular, St Johnstone, Livingston, and I can't remember if he played against Hearts, but I thought that he was a player that we didn't need in those games. Maybe counterintuitively, because I thought that he maybe slowed the game down a wee bit, where we probably could have done with like a runner in midfield. I think I said that in I want to say it was the St Johnstone game, like someone to drive the midfield on.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that he was the player to do that. He kind of like disrupts the play, collects the ball and moves it on again. But you know, we've had the conversation about, I think it was Lee Johnson's comments about his work being better. Is it without the ball?
Yeah.
He's good on the ball, but he needs to work on his game
No,
without the ball, or vice versa.
Yeah, good off it and not so good on it.
So I think that he's got a part to play, and I think that Hibs fans have got, I'm not going to say a hard on, but they want someone to fill that Matty Jack role. And I think we flirted a bit with different players for a while. I don't think that Kenna's that player, but he certainly plays that sort of position. So I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced, but it could be like he could almost be like a Bartley style player that you might play him in certain games, but not others. And we've not seen him in the games that we need to see him in yet.
So I think my take on it is that he was not a cheap signing for us in terms of wages. Obviously, we didn't pay a fee for him, but to take him for Leeds United, to bring him into our first team, promising him first team football as well, which was kind of the big draw for coming up to Easter Road. He needs to be playing, and if he can't play Lee Johnson's style, then you've got to ask a question about why would you spend the money on him? Like, what's the point in doing that?
Must have known what the fucking style was.
Aye,
you know what I mean.
Midfield also Henderson. So Henderson was signed last season, so I don't really care if we would include him in this discussion. He was only really kind of made permanent. Then who else we got? Tavares. We started going into the forwards. Colin.
I've not been impressed so far, but he's not played much.
There's been a couple of wee bits. I think the first game that I saw him in was St Johnstone, and I thought definitely said that he did as much right as he did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think was he missing for the game after that? He was suspended.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he play against? Did he play against Rangers?
Played against Livingston first half against.
Livingston. He was jet against Livingston. Aye.
Yeah.
But then I wonder, so even taking into account like Kenner there, I wonder if there's maybe going to have to be like, I know it's going to be unpalatable to folk, but I wonder if there needs to be a period of adjustment, because the game in Portugal, the game in England, like I think every player that comes to Scotland, they said, fuck, like the pace of it really catches you off guard. Yeah. And I wonder if that's something that they're just going to need to adjust to, and quickly.
And quick. Yuan?
He's looked good in flashes. More so with pace and directness rather than shooting and that. Because again, the one chance in the derby, I think he did very well with, and then the chance yesterday, which was fucking terrible. Other than that, I can't think of him. I know you rattled on a couple of shots he's had off the last time. I said that, but I can't remember him. So he looks dangerous at times, a bit a handful at times. Maybe not a great finisher.
Aye, I'd agree with that. I think I like look at him. I think there's a lot of potential there. But
he's only on loan, isn't he?
Aye, loan with a option buy, isn't it? One of these ones. Bojang, John.
Bizarrely, maybe I've quite liked the look of Bojang when he's came on. Who was it? He set up Who was it he came on against? Was it Morton?
He was the keeper.
Aye, the keeper against Morton.
So there was that, and then there was a game, I want to say it was against Morton, where he was instrumental in equaliser. Like he got the ball forward quickly and played in, I forget who it was.
McGeady. Was he playing McGeady to, I can remember the goal. It was like, Henderson it was.
Henderson,
aye. Let's say he linked up with Henderson.
So actually, I wouldn't have too many problems with dropping Doidge and playing Bojang. Just because I think because I don't expect that much from him, given it wasn't like a lack of fanfare, it was kind of like negative publicity around him because of that, the missing entry on Wikipedia. So I would be all right. I'm all right with him so far.
Okay, McGeady obviously injured. Is there any problem with him going to the Celtic B team game yesterday?
Burnley don't make the players go to the away games anymore. It was the same when Mike McGuinness and that were in the boozer, and folk were trying to stir shite about that.
Aye.
McGuinness and Nisbet and that. So they haven't have to go to the home games now as part of the representing the club. So he's thought I'll just nip, maybe he stays near there, nip along the road to see that rather than.
Does anyone know for definite that if he wasn't was he definitely not at the Hibs game?
No, he might have been. So he could have gone to one game and then the next. I'm not sure what the kick-off times were like, etc. But it caused a bit of a ripple.
I know that the optics around it look a bit bad, but I didn't really have any particular concerns about the boy being injured and not going to the away game. I wasn't even aware that players used to go to the away games.
It's not compulsory, but the thing is, I don't know if there was any, even if you wanted to go, you would have to get a ticket early because it's sold out, eh?
Fair enough. You get a player ticket, we get accompanied out. Who have we missed? Have we missed anybody still for that?
Boyle.
Boyle, of course, yeah.
Big tick in that box.
Aye, I mean, you're not going to argue with Boyle. But, so, if we were asking about Lee Johnson carrying the can with it, because I think reading the forums last night, and obviously the night for Ian Gordon, right? And I think Ian Gordon is head of recruitment, regardless of whether he's going and plugging the stats into a computer and picking out which ones we sign or no, or if he's just overseeing it, or if it's an admin role. His job is head of. If you're coming into a window where we are playing the same team as we were playing last season, where we've no fixed the centre half problem season after season, and we're still a striker short, it doesn't matter who he is. That is you've got to ask the question that how safe should his job be? And like I said, it's not about him picking the players or what the actual process of getting it for identifying a player to signing a player is. But if your recruitment team overall is not providing the manager with the players that are going to win football games, then it needs to be a change, surely.
How is there not a post-it note on his computer that says sign a centre half? Underlined 3 times. Sign on the left hand side. Sign a striker. Sign a centre half. There should be fucking pop-ups in his outlooks and fucking reminders on his phone, you name it.
Recurring reminder in Outlook, 8 a.m. every morning. Bing.
He's just dismissing it, ignore for 3 years.
Aye.
But then the flip side is Lee Johnson has to take some. But my opinion is he's almost got a free pass because folk have got the knives out for Ian Gordon. And you go Lee Johnson's got beat off Falkirk. He's got beat albeit on penalties from Morton, St Mirren and Livingston. And just 4 games that you would expect us to take something from.
Well, I don't know, I kind of feel like that circle we're just going round and round in circles because if you've not got the players, and we didn't have the players previously to be winning those games, you've got a different manager and you've still got the same players. Just still in the same position. He
has got different players. I think that's the point, though, John, is it?
So there are some different players, but we just in yesterday's game, for example, there was 8 started the game that were last season's players that Lee Johnson didn't sign.
He signed the whole team.
But that's the point. He's signed all these players, and if we're led to believe that he's got sign off on who comes in, so he gets the rubber stamp it, and he talked about pursuing Tavares at like a previous club, and he wanted to get him in. He's been instrumental in convincing players to sign. So he's done the sales pitch to Miller. He's done the sales pitch to Kenna. All these players coming in.
But was this not a conversation that we had with Maloney and a conversation that we had with Jack Ross about the players that they had from a previous manager and the players that they brought in and not playing them? I feel like we're having the same conversation every couple of months, and I didn't understand how to get to the bottom of it.
But that's the point. The manager surely needs to be going, well, we've brought in these players, so we need to be playing them, and going, we know for definite that midfield 3, for example, doesn't work. So I'm not going to play them anymore. I'll find a system. Either find a system that they can play that works for them, because that could be the issue, that they just can't do what he's asking them to, in which case his job is to find a way to make that work. Or you change the players and say, right, maybe can't play exactly like this because we didn't have those type of players. That's what I've got, so we'll play this way and make it work like that. But I just think it, and I have no collar like I believe that Lee Johnson is a good manager. I think ultimately, if he's given enough time, he'll do well for us. But I think he's been given a free pass because folk have got the knives out for Ian Gordon. I think actually most managers should have been able to win more games than Lee Johnson's done for us. You look at the League Cup game that we got papped out, League Cup group that we got knocked out of. It's fucking scandalous that we didn't get through there. And
the previous managers never lost 8 games.
No.
Neither of them. And they were in the same boat, weren't they? Yeah. Even that's how we were in cup finals at the time, because we won games like that.
So, I mean, I think that's like Saturday's game was probably the first time I had a massive question mark about it and gone, come on, you've got to be individually, you've got to be better there to the manager. As much as the players will have to carry the can for the performance, the manager's got a huge bit of accountability there for me.
There's a couple of points on that, and sorry, John, you carry on first.
No, I was going to ask, like, so it's the question mark that you mentioned there about Lee Johnson and like previous managers having won the games that he lost in the League Cup and everything. Like, are we just looking at Lee Johnson and his 5 games in isolation, saying that's not good enough, or are we incorporating the way that we feel about the way that the club's been run over the last couple of years, and the failures that we've had, and the managers that we've had, and the players that we've signed, and the lack of success that we've had?
There's 5 league games. There's also the League Cup, which was another 4, wasn't it?
Sorry, all right, okay, 10 games, 5 games, 10 games, whichever.
I think it's about everything, John. But I think the bit that Lee Johnson's responsible for are the games that he's managed. And even if you go, normally, like if a manager comes in mid-season, you maybe write off the first couple of games. If you do maybe the new manager bounce, they maybe could come into a couple of tough games. You might have Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, whatever, right? Lee Johnson's first competitive games were gimmies, almost. Like Falkirk, Morton, Clyde, and Bonnyrigg were the ones that he had to win.
So I suppose I'm looking at it. So you remember the thing about Alan Stubbs when he won the Scottish Cup, and I can't remember if it was whoever it was that had the conversation with him and said, "Oh, there's a weight of expectation. There's like however many years since we last won it." And he went, "Hang on, like this is my first opportunity." So Lee Johnson's had 10 games, and there's been an absolute shit show for the last however many years behind them, and we're all feeling as shit as we are about it. And it would be easy and understandable for us to look at it and go, "This is fucking shite. You're not good enough." But we surely can't be looking at it after 5 league games, League Cup games. Totally understand your point about the fact that he's having lost them, but there has to be an opportunity for him to, and the club to try and like move beyond this stage.
Yeah, and I advocate giving him time. I'm not saying that we should be sacking him or the name should be out, but I do think there should be a question asked to say, should he be doing better?
What's does the question introduce that element of doubt in the supporters' minds where we're all getting itchy fingers? Because I've seen today on like the message boards, and like especially after the Dundee United result today, like, oh fuck, they're playing us in 2 weeks, so you can imagine that they're going to beat us. Like, they're absolute shit. Jack Ross is going to come back to haunt us, and we just again we go around in circles with this sort of stuff.
We do.
So I think who was it the other week? It was when we played St Johnstone. It was like, oh fucking Dre Wright, Milker Halberg, Jamie Murphy chased out Hibs, but actually they're good enough to come back and score against us because we're shite. And we're looking at Dundee United and Jack Ross like, why the fuck are we still having conversations about Jack Ross? Why are Hibs supporters going, oh, the big fucking Jack Ross loving in the media?
Delighting it, yeah.
Jack Ross isn't our manager. Lee Johnson is.
Move on. No, I agree with you, John. I think you make a valid point there, and you do need to give time, but I think this is where folks' patience wear out because you lose a game to St Mirren. As soon as St Mirren scored, we all came up with what's fucking happening. But like, you could have written the script there and then we could all switch. You could have packed up, got along the M8 early, avoided the traffic, because we know the players that he's picked. We know the players who are on the bench that are going to come on, and we know what they do in those games, and it's no good enough. And that's
So
why
you're
folk
saying
get fucking livid about it.
you say that you know, is it purely based on like the midfield three, or what's it based upon? Because we've had 4 league games previously. Take the Livy game out of it, which was shit. Had the late goal against St Johnstone, late goal against Hearts, and I know that like late's going to get picked up on here. Late goals, but they were scoring goals. So what was it made you think that? Was it because of the Livingston game, that because they scored first and you went, oh fuck?
Aye, so you can't rely on it, right? And late goals are, the ones that we've scored, they're as legitimate as one that's scored in the first minute, right? But it's not just the 5 games that we've seen this season. It's like you said, there's that history of the players that we've got there.
Go back over the last 2 seasons of these games, 3 seasons of these games, and it's like I put in the group chat yesterday when they scored. This is going to be shit now, because like we've went 1-0 down in the first 15 minutes, and the next 75 will be fucking dinking it about in the midfield, keeping loads of ball, and no shooting and no scoring. And that's got to try and keep the score down almost. That's what we're trying to do.
So because we've largely got that same group of players that we've seen concede a goal first and haven't managed to come back and win more regularly than not, we're not convinced, and that's why we're saying like when we concede first, that's it, game's over. Might as well pack up and go home. Because I can get on board with that, and I think if that's the conclusion, then surely the second conclusion that you reach is that Joe Newell needs to be sold, Jake Doyle-Hayes needs to be sold, Christian Doidge needs to be sold, and you need to replace that entire group of players, because the weight of history on them will never allow us to progress a football club.
Or you find a better system for it to work.
Correct. I mean, that was the thing.
That's 4 different managers, 4 different systems. So
correct. So
they need to go.
It's the attitude, absolutely, and that's what I said last night. The attitude is some of the problem. So that we took all the excuses away this time, right? They never had a plastic pitch to play on, right? It was grass, but they still turned out the same performance they did the last time they were away from home, and the time before that, and the time before that. So it's their attitude turning up to these places isn't good enough. It's not what we require. That's where I'm at. Their attitude is fucking shite. Big game on the telly. Oh, I'm here. Look at me. I can play a bit. Fucking Livingston or St Mirren away. No thanks. And that's in the sunshine. Imagine it in the winter.
Aye.
It'll be fucking worse.
We've seen this story over and over and over about these players, and you can what you're getting for them. There's no surprises there. None of us were shocked when we lost that game. And the late goals, and I get the point you make, John, right? Because that gives you hope that maybe that's a new dawn. But they're the exception, aren't they? Really, if you look over the period of however many games it has been since we've last had a properly decent team, there's not a team that scores barrel loads of late goals. We've done it a few times, but we've also not done it loads of times. Kind of like Morton, Falkirk, etc.
I think what I was trying to get at, that might have been a quality, like a wee sort of plus mark in the Lee Johnson column where the team plays for 90 minutes. It's not going to be one of those scenarios where they can
we said that last week. Absolutely, I'm not going to contradict that. Yeah. But these games are common now. It's not the late goals. 2 of them are in big games at home on the telly, and they're few and far between. Mm-hmm. The other ones, St Johnstone was the exception to the rule. And then we got a late goal when we hadn't conceded an early one. Because normally we've got to lose an early goal and go, oh, fuck's sake, they just got to sit in there, we're not going to break them down. Like we did at Livingston, like we did at St Mirren, like we do every fucking Dundee last year. Like all these games, it's fucking over and over and over. I'm sick of it. I'm not giving them excuses anymore. I'm just not. I was sick of it the last time at Livingston. I said I wasn't having the pitch excuse. Mind we had the debate on here about there's various people saying about the pitch on the talking points, and that's like, it's nothing to do with the pitch that time. It's just convenient now it's plastic. It'll be this. I'm trying to think of the other games, but you could go through the fixtures for the last 3 years, and you would pick these up. Ross County away, pish. Just like a home team that performs when the cameras are there. That's all we've got.
Turn up for the big games. Any other talking points we've got talking point wise? Because I'm just conscious we'll do this. We've not got time for the quiz tonight, so we'll sack that.
Miscellaneous. This goes to Pat Fry's Image and Scott McIntosh. Thank fuck Dundee United are in the league. 13 weeks into the job, I wonder what Lee Johnson's learnt about the club. he'll have a good idea about the players who are here and suspect, based on his lineups, has questions about recruitment. His teams haven't scored enough goals, obvious, but it's the root cause of the criticism. I think they touched on all of that, I think. Most fans accept that clubs cannot afford elite players and therefore know that players will have their blind spots and weaknesses. This acceptance does not seem to extend to managers, with very little patience shown during the first few months. What are your thoughts on this? We've kind of touched on like if he's to blame or not. I think most people are starting to blame everybody else apart from the manager here on this occasion. But it's got to be it's a bit of both here. There's a bit of both, but in my opinion, the common denominator, if you like, over the last 3 managers has been the recruitment. So I've got to say, like, the recruitment's not been good. Like since Jack Ross got sacked because he wasn't happy with the recruitment, and then the results went, and then Maloney came in and didn't get the players, and then you know what I mean. It's like the recruitment's the common denominator, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is like that sort of player pool. I think the other thing with managers, why managers get less time or less understanding for their flaws, there's probably a smaller pool, isn't there? Like, you know, like for players, you've got your elite players that we could never ever afford, and there's probably a handful of elite managers. But then beyond that, the amount of managers that are there and are looking for work, you actually have to be really good to be a manager. And the club's expectations at somewhere like Hibs, or probably like most SPL clubs, are that you get somebody who is a good manager, either on their way up or Lee Johnson, who's been around a few clubs and got a bit of experience under his belt and proven himself as a decent manager. It's not like the players that I think you've got more choice as a football club as to you can be more selective with your managers than you can with your players.
Yeah, there's more players available than there are managers, though.
Aye.
I think I know where you were going.
But there's more. So there's more clubs looking for those players. Players at a level. Well, they find a level, and there's loads of clubs that they can move about to, kind of like your journeyman footballers. But it's rare that a footballer who's a decent player will find themselves without a club. Whereas decent managers find themselves without clubs all the time. Because you only get one per club. That's kind of what it means. So you have loads of good managers who are out of work or are trying to find jobs, or maybe in a job that you could go and identify and poach them. And I think because of that, is that being able to be a bit more selective. I'm maybe not explaining it very well, but
I think I know what you mean. I know. It's hard. It's pish, yeah. It's fucking pish. Like, we try to be positive where we can, eh? Like, we keep taking the piss on it, and when you score late goals, it does mask it a bit. Like because it was Hearts and Rangers as well. It's made us feel more positive. We're taking a positive from that we're fighting to the last minute and all of that, but really scratch the surface and you're back to this shit again against these teams that we expect to beat. I think we've deserved. This is like the first season where I think we've deserved everything we've got, both ways this season. So when we've been shite, we've been beat. When we've been good, we've got something for the game. Yeah.
Whether that's a draw in a big game or beating St Johnstone, we pretty much are where we should be based on how we've performed. But it's not good enough. That's like the problem. It's sitting 8th. So anyway, we'll wrap up, right? So we're kind of run out of time for tonight's episode. So we'll go and record extra time. Extra time is our subscriber episodes. It's about an extra half hour or so. Sometimes a wee bit more than that when we do it. Tonight we're going to be taking this discussion about performances a wee bit further and picking up on, you mentioned it earlier, Colin, some stats. So calendar year since 28th August last year, we've won 4 league games, which is against Ross County, St Mirren, and twice against St Johnstone. And in that time, we've picked up 35 points from our last 36 league games, which is obviously an alarming stat. So we're going to kind of just pick the bones out of that a wee bit in extra time. we're going to talk about how that's influenced the fan reaction to Saturday, which was, it's a lot of unhappy Hibs out there at the minute. So we will explore that a wee bit further. And I think Jeff Ashton, had asked us to talk about time wasting as well, which we might touch on that if we've got the time to do it. So we'll be back on our Twitter space on Tuesday to talk about this episode. If you think anything that we've talked about here you want to kind of discuss a bit further, just watch out for that. We'd love to have you on, and we'd also love you to subscribe as well. So if you're not a subscriber and you want to listen to this with adverts and get a bit extra content and all the rest of it, go to longbangers.hubwave.net and sign up. You'll get extra content there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you.
Live show, mate. You guys say?
Oh, aye, live show. So 21st October, tickets will be available for purchase from tomorrow. You can DM us on Twitter if you're interested, and we'll set some aside for you and give you the payment details.
Just for clarity, though, we're not talking about Hibs live.
No, we're not talking about Hibs live. No, we will be doing short bangers and some associated nonsense with it.
Actually, if we continue being pish, we might sell the place out.
We might do.
Maybe hear us more.
We might. All right, thanks for listening. Thanks for the reminder there, Colin. We'll see you next time.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink what I know.